and Bluetooth paired to his name in our living room. The speaker chirped like a cheerful butler and said a name that did not belong in my living room. Connected to Noah's iPhone. It announced in that agreeable voice that refuses to take sides. The music didn't start, just the connection. And then the light went solid blue, as if the room had nodded yes to a proposition I hadn't heard. Lena stood by the bookshelf with a hardcover balanced in one hand, and a posture that meant she was already editing the next 5 minutes. She glanced at the speaker, then at me, then back at the book like it might intervene. "Noah," I said, mild enough to be brave. My mouth tried on the name, it didn't fit. "Probably the neighbor," she said, wrapping a shrug around herself. "The walls are needy, Bluetooth leaks. We learned that with the printer." We had learned that with the printer. One disastrous Sunday where I accidentally gave our entire floor a copy of my tax receipts. But the speaker had never been promiscuous before today, and the way Lena avoided looking at the blue light made the room tilt a degree. I walked over and unpaired it with my thumb like a man closing a window against weather he doesn't respect. The blue dot blinked, considered its life choices, went still. "Fixed," I said. It sounded like a lie even though it was a fact. She smiled the way we smile when we are trying to be friends with the truth before it bites. "I'll make tea," she said, and I let her because our version of mercy often arrives in mugs. The tea was jasmine, which always makes our kitchen smell like optimism. We sat on the counter stools we bought to feel like people who stopped to talk. Lena told me about a pitch meeting that was mostly adjectives and a colleague who spoke in bullet points even when nobody was taking notes. I told her the edit I was working on had too much city and not enough human. We were good at normal. Normal is an art. We performed it without looking at the speaker. At night we read in bed with the lamps low and the plant, no name yet, turning its leaves very slowly like a polite dancer. Sometime after midnight, I woke to the small buzz that means someone has decided to text, and the phone has decided to betray them gently. The screen lit my face from the drawer. I didn't look. I lay there and counted the seconds until I was a person again. Eventually, I slept like a man hiding from a helpful voice. In the morning, habit turned me into a detective without the coat. I opened the router app and checked connected devices because I have become a person who talks to the internet like it owes me eye contact. There they were, my laptop, her tablet, my phone, the printer we never forgave, and a newcomer whose name felt like a smug wink. Noah's iPhone. Last seen 02/11. The app drew a little map as if it could triangulate betrayal with a graphic. I closed the app and walked to the window and watched the street invent a reason to be awake. The bakery unloaded trays of identical breads, and the dog walker swore softly at a retriever with no interest in capitalism. It was possible that Lena was telling the truth, that Bluetooth wandered, and the world was innocent, and the speaker had simply flirted with a stranger. It was also possible that the living room knew more than I did. Lena left for work in a gray sweater that made her look like punctuation in a paragraph everyone respects. She kissed my cheek and said be brilliant, and I said be safe, and the domestic sincerity of it almost carried me through the day. At lunch, the speaker shivered and said his name again even though I was alone. The blue light brightened the room like a false morning. I turned it off. I turned it on. It connected to nothing, then to nowhere again, as if we were both repeating a bad decision in miniature. I Googled Noahs that I knew. There were two. One was the Noah who worked in Lena's office and once told a joke about fonts that made her laugh in a way that sounded like she wanted the joke to have a better life. The other was the Noah who lived upstairs for a week while his own apartment flooded, and then left before we learned whether he was messy or meticulous. The office one felt too obvious. The neighbor felt too easy. I closed the browser and did the only thing a person can do when speculation becomes performance. I went outside. The park near our building is not heroic. It is 3 benches and a tree that tries. I sat and stared at the tree until it looked like it was checking on me. A woman sat at the other end of the bench with the posture of someone who knows how to leave politely. She wore a blazer that could have hosted a meeting and sneakers that could have outrun one. "Bluetooth trouble," she said, not looking at me, the way you do when you want to give a stranger an alibi. "Speaker thinks it has free will," I said. "Mine too," she said. "Yesterday it asked if I wanted to reconnect to a man I planned to forget. Uncanny accuracy." We both laughed in that quick, quiet way that suggests relief just found a chair. She introduced herself with her eyes. "Tessa." She said it later with her mouth. I introduced myself with my name and a joke about how my brother says I collect the wrong stories. "Wrong how?" she asked. "The kind that don't look good in a photo," I said. "The kind that ask to be believed without music." We watched people cheat on their lunch breaks with the sun. Tessa had the soft, unsentimental voice of someone who has been inside other people's emergencies and chosen to remain a person anyway. I told her the speaker had said a name, and the router had backed it up, and my living room had started feeling like an audience I didn't invite. "Do you want to know?" she asked. "Or do you want to know?" "I want to be done with staging," I said. "I don't want the hallway scene. I want the kitchen table with the ugly light." "Kitchen tables are expensive," she said, "but they're the kind of expensive that pays you back." She gave me a number and told me it belonged to someone who might help me decide how good a person I wanted to be. "Not a fixer," she said, "a witness who can point at seams." The name she gave me was a name I recognized from too many parties where the drinks were better than the conversations. Myra. Myra met me at a cafe with chairs that wobbled just enough to keep honesty upright. She listened the way good editors do, expression still, eyes doing all the work. I told her about the speaker and the blue dot and the version of me I hoped I was. She said she was less interested in the man with the phone than the man who had chosen a bench before he chose anger. "Don't gather evidence you plan to regret owning," she said. "Gather enough to avoid writing the wrong apology." By early evening I had enough. I had a speaker that loved the wrong person. I had a router with receipts. I had a name that didn't belong in my living room and a woman who might still inhabit it if I didn't set the wrong fire. I texted Lena, "Meet me by the canal at 7. She said yes without a question mark, which is either love or exhaustion. We sat on the low wall and watched the water pretend to be meaningful. I told her the facts. I didn't color them. The speaker said his name. The router said he stayed. My mouth said I need the kitchen table. The look she gave me was not guilty. It was grateful. She had been waiting for a door that didn't require her to run through it. "Noah from work," she said. 2 months of wanting to be a person who could make a clean choice and somehow failing to schedule the right meeting with herself. "Do you love him?" I asked, because the question is ugly and necessary. "I love you," she said. "I am drawn to him. Those are not the same math and they refuse to cancel each other out." The canal forgot how to be deep. A cyclist cursed the wind in itself. A child announced it had outgrown pigeons. I said the only thing I trust when a room becomes a puzzle. We stop, we pause, we go to ugly chairs and say sentences that deserve no applause. You at Maya's, me at Liam's, a month. No corridors, no speaker-sponsored courage. She agreed fast enough to break my heart and mend it in the same breath. We walked home together to divide the immediate nouns. She took the toothbrush with the blue stripe and the sweater that made me polite. I took the plant, and a copy of a book nobody is supposed to love except it works. At the door, she lifted her mouth to mine with the cautious insistence of someone signing something they'd like to keep. We kissed the kind of kiss that belongs to the rooms you want again. Hands aware, breath honest. Heat held back not because we were cold, but because we wanted to be generous to morning. Liam did what brothers do, opened the door with beer and silence. I slept on his couch and dreamed about speakers that said welcome back and meant the bones. In the morning, I woke up to a text from an unknown number. This is Noah. Can we meet? I don't want to be an unspeaking noun in your house. We met on a bench that leaned a little, the way truth does. He was less sleek than I had prepared for and more careful. He looked like a man who had made a decision without the proper instructions and wanted to return it. I won't sell you on anything, he said. I just want you to know she is not an accident to me. I know, I said. That is not the comfort you think it is. He nodded. I'm stepping back, he said. Not for points, because love wants light and I'm tired of dimmers. Switch teams at work, I said. Give the hallway back to the hallway. Already in motion, he said. We shook hands because men love rituals that look like architecture. It wasn't forgiveness. It was the beginning of being less theatrical. Therapy was exactly what I needed and worse. Ugly chairs, smart questions, water that tasted like it had opinions. I confessed to enjoying being the good one. Lena confessed to enjoying not being excellent for a minute in a room where excellence is the rent. We practiced sentences that closed doors without locking them. We practiced touching without inventorying what it would cost us tomorrow. There was a woman in these weeks I have not named yet because she didn't arrive to replace anyone. Tessa, the bench woman. We started walking the city like we were being paid by the step. We practiced a softness that didn't require shadows. We kissed once under a streetlight that made us look briefly like actors and stopped not because we were noble, but because restraint felt like a new language we wanted to speak without an accent. By the time the month came due, I had learned the smell of a room that can hold two decent people who have done harm and would like to repair without turning the work into a parade. Lena met me at our table, the one with the scratch where my elbow learned humility. We sat across from each other like people about to do the bravest, ordinary thing. Rebuild, she said. Rebuild, I said. Slow, like we found the instructions behind a dresser and they're smudged. We outlawed grand gestures for a quarter. We scheduled boredom on purpose. We created a ritual called Nothing Fancy where we undressed like we were tidying a room we planned to live in. The erotic found us in ordinary angles, her knee against my thigh while we argued about grocery lists, my hand at her waist while the sauce demanded patience. We stopped while stopping still felt like generosity. We let the morning trust us again. Noah wrote a final message. Standing down, not noble, necessary. I didn't reply. He didn't ask me to. Tessa sent a photo of a bench at noon and wrote for whenever you want honesty without an assignment. I thanked her and did not sit because not every kindness needs an audience. We named the plant, not to be cute, to remind ourselves that turning toward light is a discipline. We called it Pivot, and sometimes at night we turn it on the sill and pretend we invented mercy. The speaker still introduces people sometimes. Technology cannot be shamed into wisdom, but now it mostly says our names, the phones we actually own, the lives we actually inhabit. On nights when we are foolish and the blue dot blinks like a dare, I press the button that tells the voice to hush and I turn to Lena and say something unmarketable, like I missed you while I was in the next room or please put your cold feet on my leg and make me complain. She laughs and does exactly that, and the bed learns our names again. If you came for a scandal, I'm sorry. If you came for a method, I have one tiny thing. Do not let the machines announce what you have not practiced saying. Let the speaker be a speaker. Let your mouth be the room where the truth lives without needing applause. If a name you didn't invite shows up in your living room, ask the person you love to sit at the kitchen table under the ugly light and be bored with you at high volume until the boredom becomes a kind of music. Last week, Lena put something in her calendar and then grinned like a thief who returned a painting after staring at it long enough. It said us, recurring. I added a shared note to the router app that only we can see. It says this network belongs to two people who learned to pair on purpose. The speaker chirped. Connected to Mark. Connected to Lena. We smiled at the silly blue yes and did the thing that keeps the house honest. We reached for each other without asking the room to narrate.